Ladies and gentlemen, it is my singular honor and privilege to invite up to the fore the chairman of today's opening ceremony, Alhaji Aliko Dangote, GCON, President and Chief Executive, Dangote Group, to deliver his opening remarks. With a resounding applause, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome to the fore Professor Hassan Mahmood, the Group Chief Economist, Dangote Group, representing the chairman of opening ceremony. Please, our applause can be better. Thank you.
The President, Commander-in-Chief, Federal Republic of Nigeria, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, ably represented by the Honorable Minister, Ministry of Works, Senator Nweze David Umahi, CON, the executive governors here present, honorable ministers, permanent secretaries, legislators, distinguished senators, honorable members of the House of Assembly, the President of the Council of Coren, the Registrar, distinguished members of the Coren Council, leaders of the engineering profession, captains of industries, policymakers and regulators, members of the diplomatic community, development partners, ladies and gentlemen. I will also still stand, even with the many names I've mentioned, on existing protocols, because there are a lot of other people I was not able to mention directly. First and foremost, let me convey the sincere apologies and regrets of Alhaji Aliko Dangote, the President and Chief Executive of the Dangote Group, for his unavoidable absence here. He has extended his best wishes and has asked me to make his chairman's remark, given that he's appointed the chairman of this event. So I'm going to be reading his chairman's remark verbatim. It is a great honor and privilege to join you today as chairman of the 34th Engineering Assembly of Council for Regulation of Engineering in Nigeria. I congratulate Coren for selecting a theme that is not only timely, but also central to Nigerian development aspiration. Advancing public safety in Nigeria through safety engineering, regulation, enforcement, and tiered sanctioning regime. The theme reminds us that engineering is far more than a technical profession. It is a public trust. Every road we travel, every bridge we cross, every airport, seaport, hospitals, refinery, power stations, factory, water system, telecommunication network depends fundamentally on the competence, integrity, and professionalism of engineers. When engineering succeeds, societies flourish. When engineering fails, the consequences are measured not only by financial losses, but in damage in infrastructure, disrupt in livelihoods, diminish investors' confidence, and tragically, the loss of human lives. Public safety, therefore, begins long before an infrastructure asset is commissioned. It begins at the drawing board, in design calculation, material specification, construction supervision, quality assurance, and above all, in professional ethics. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished professional engineers, Nigeria stands today at a defining moment in its development journey. With a population over 230 million and counting, and projected to become the third most populous nation in the world by 2050, the demand for infrastructure, housing, transportation, electricity, industrial facilities, water supply, digital connectivity is expanding at an unprecedented pace. At the same time, the African Continental Free Trade Area presents Nigeria with an historic opportunity to become Africa's industrial manufacturing hub. However, industrial competitiveness cannot be built on weak infrastructure, it cannot be built on compromised standards, and it certainly cannot be built where public confidence in engineering system is undermined. Engineering excellence, therefore, is no longer a mere professional objective. It is a strategic economic imperative. The World Bank estimated that developing countries require trillions of dollars of annual infrastructure investment to meet growth and its development and climate objectives. Nigeria alone faces a substantial infrastructural financing deficit over the coming decades. Every naira, every dollar invested in infrastructure must therefore deliver assets that are safe, that are resilient, that are efficient, and capable of serving future generations. This is why engineering regulation matters. Good regulation is often misunderstood as an administrative burden. In reality, it is an investment enabler. Countries that are consistently attract long-term capital are those where investors have confidence that projects will be designed, constructed, and maintained according to internationally recognized best standards. Regulation reduces uncertainty, standard reduces risk, and quality engineering reduces life cycle cost. And together they improve national competitiveness. This is a true for public infrastructure as it is for the private investors. As an industrialist, permit me to share a personal reflection. Over the last 4 decades, I have had the privilege of participating in the development of some Africa's largest industrial projects, including cement plants, sugar refineries, fertilizer facilities, petrochemical complex, and most recently, the Dangote petrochemical refinery in Lekki, Lagos. These projects have reinforced one lesson above all. Engineering discipline is the foundation upon which industrial success is built. The Dangote refinery was not simply another construction project. It was one of the most ambitious industrial undertakings ever executed on the continent of Africa. Delivering such a project required thousands of engineers across multiple disciplines, millions of engineering man-hour, rigorous design verification, international certified standards, extensive testing, and uncompromising commitment to safety throughout the planning, construction, and commissioning processes. There were occasions where engineering reviews required design modification, additional testing, or higher technical specification than originally contemplated. These decisions increased costs and escalated the budget. Some affected project timeline, but we accepted them because engineering integrity can never be negotiated. Safety is not an option feature that can be added later. It is embedded in every engineering decision from conception to completion. Indeed, one of the most valuable lessons from large-scale industrial development is that the apparent savings achieved by compromising standards are almost always overwhelmed by the greater cost of equipment failure, operational hazard and disruption, environmental damages, litigations, reputational loss, and most importantly, threats to human lives. At Dangote, we have come to believe that the most expensive infrastructure is not the one that costs more to build. It is the one that fails before its time. This philosophy has become part of our corporate culture across the Dangote Group. Engineering excellence is not viewed simply as a technical requirement. It is an investment philosophy. It is a governance principle. It is a business strategy. And ultimately, it is a commitment to every employee, every customer, every community where we operate. Distinguished professionals, History has compelling evidence that nations which have achieved sustained industrial development have done so on the foundation of strong engineering institutions. These countries differ in geography, in history, in economic structure, but they share one common important characteristics. They understand that public safety is too important to depend on good intentions alone. It must be protected by strong institutions, competent professionals, effective regulation, and consistent enforcement. Nigeria must embrace this same philosophy. Fortunately for Nigeria, our engineering profession has produced world-class talent that continues to distinguish itself across the globe. Our responsibility today is to ensure that regulatory ecosystem within this profession operates in equally world-class standards. That is precisely why the work of Coren remains indispensable to our national development. However, regulation must continually evolve to respond to emerging technologies, increasing complex infrastructure, and rising public expectation. Engineering regulation should not merely react to failures. It should anticipate risk, encourage innovation, and promote culture of excellence. Distinguished guests, professional engineers, permit me now to turn to what I consider the defining element of this year's theme, the proposal of tiered sanctioning regime. This represents an important evolution in engineering regulation. Every mature regulatory system recognizes that every violation is the same. There is a clear distinction between an administrative oversight or an error arising from inadequate competencies, professional negligence, gross misconduct, or deliberate action that knowingly place lives and properties at risk. Justice and effective regulation require that these different circumstances be treated differently. Minor breaches may warrant corrective directives, mandatory continuing professional development, closer supervision, and administrative penalties. More serious violations may require license suspension, financial sanction, or temporary restriction on practice. The gravest cases, particularly where reckless conduct results in loss of lives and catastrophic failure, should attract stronger sanctions available under the law, including the registration and criminal prosecution of perpetrators. Such approaches is already reflected in many advanced jurisdictions. This objective is not simply to punish. The objective is to improve professional conduct, strengthen compliance, and protect the general public. That is what regulation should ultimately achieve. At the same time, we must consider this framework to remain sensitive to the realities of the Nigerian economy. Many engineering failures in our country do not arise solely because engineers lack competence. They are frequently linked to wider institutional weaknesses, poor procurement systems, project funding interruption, disregard for professional advice, political interference, inadequate maintenance, engagement of unqualified practitioners, weak qualified assurances, and proliferation of substandard construction material. If these dynamics issues are ignored, sanctions imposed only on engineers will not address the system, the symptoms, rather the root of the crisis. Our regulatory responses must therefore be comprehensive. Accountability should extend across the entire project value chain. Developers who deliberately ignore engineering specification, contractors who substitute approved materials with inferior product, consultants who satisfy defective work, suppliers who introduce substandard materials into the market, and public officials who knowingly circumvent due process should all be held accountable under effective regulatory system. The answer, therefore, is not simply stronger sanctions. The answer is smarter sanctions. In my view, An effective Nigerian model should be guided by 5 principles. Sanction must always be proportionate to the gravity of the offense and the risk posed to the public safety. Enforcement must be transparent, objective, and consistent, irrespective of status, influence, or institutional affiliation. The framework should encourage corrective action, continuous professional improvement, particularly where shortcomings arise from capacity gap rather than deliberate misconduct. There should be zero tolerance for repeated offenders and willful violations that knowingly endanger lives, and compromise national infrastructure. And finally, regulation itself should remain dynamic. As engineering technology evolves, from digital design, artificial intelligence to advanced material and smart infrastructure, our regulatory framework must evolve with them consequently. Permit me to conclude with one final thought. The greatness of a nation is not measured by only the scale of infrastructure it builds, but by the confidence its citizens have in the safety, quality, and integrity of that infrastructure. Engineering is therefore not only about structure, it is about stewardship. It is about protecting lives, preserving national assets, and building the foundation upon which future generations will prosper. I therefore commend the Council for its steadfast leadership in advancing professionalism, accountability, and public safety. I also encourage every stakeholder, government, regulators, academia, industry, and the engineering community to work together in building an engineering ecosystem that meets the highest global standard while responding to Nigeria's unique developmental needs. On the final thought, it is my singular honor to be given the privilege to chair this occasion, and I wish you a fruitful deliberation and enduring success. God bless Coren. God bless Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Can we please put our hands together once again?